Okay, it's update time. I haven't spoken on the markets for a while, and I think it's time to do so. Uh, by the way, no, the markets did not beat me up. In fact, I'm killing it in the markets. Um, this is the first time I'm going to come on as Cryptopher in a long time. I stopped doing cryptocurrencies for a while because the times did a change. So if you've been watching my videos and you saw in the past and I was like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to the moon, that was before I started to see the economy go downhill. If the economy had stayed the same, then I would still be super bullish about Bitcoin. Now, you can go back in my history of my videos and see that I have said that. That I stopped investing in Bitcoin when it was around 10,000, and I told people that I wouldn't buy anymore until it dropped to 5. Well, it did drop to 5, and I'm starting to look at it, but the unfortunate thing is the economy is actually starting to downturn worldwide. So I'm really reconsidering whether 5,000 is a good buy-in point, because it has dropped far below 5,000 in terms of Bitcoin. And when I was at 10,000, it dropped down to 8. I decided to take my money and put it into other cryptocurrencies rather than Bitcoin, because I lost about 2,000 per position in my Bitcoin, and I felt that that was enough for me to figure out that I needed to sit on the sidelines and watch Bitcoin a little bit more. Am I against Bitcoin? No, I still love it. I think it's a phenomenal technology. But remember, I did a video probably about a month ago, maybe, talking about cryptocurrencies and how they are a hybrid of monetary asset and tech stock. And tech stocks are dependent upon interest rates because tech stock or technology is highly speculative. If you are going to develop a new technology, you don't have cash flow yet. And so a bank will not necessarily lend you the money at a favorable term because it's a high risk investment. So when interest rates are low, when the central banks drop interest rates to virtually zero, it's perfect for technology because even though there's risk, you don't have the time value and monetary cost issue that you have when interest rates are high. So yeah, there's a little bit higher interest rate due to the risk factor that there's no proven track record in a technology firm, but you eliminate that additional cost of the high interest rates that the Fed has normally into the market anyway, and fed into the banking system. So right now you have interest rates rising. The Federal Reserve is rising interest. They're lifting interest rates. And as I've said in many, many, many videos, the Fed raises interest rates until something breaks, and they're breaking things. And what I'm seeing in markets right now is kind of reminiscent to 2007-ish volatility, where you're seeing ups and downs and ups and downs, and it's like the market doesn't know which way it's going. So I'll go back to my liquidity crisis videos where I said that the economy of the world has been so overloaded with gas that now it's run out of gas with the credit system. They've lowered the interest rates so much, and now that interest rates and they've lowered interest rates so much that people got into so much debt at all levels, business, private, whether it's education, auto loans, borrowing to invest, borrowing to buy real estate, speculation, investment, education, and personal need has all been financed by credit. And by all this financing of credit, people have been drowned in debt. So by drowning people in debt, now when they're raising interest rates, that's a big problem, and it's going to affect technology. You're seeing it in the technology stocks where Apple is dropping like a rock. It's a falling apple. Why is it falling? Because first of all, they charge too damn much for their phones. It's a great technology, and yeah, it'll hurt me if I stop buying Apple products because I'm so used to the ease of use that there's a switching cost if I go back to Android. But at the same time, there's an opportunity cost to buying an Apple iPhone because it's like I could pay $1,000 for a phone, or I could pay my mortgage for a month, or I could buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, or I could buy $1,000 worth of food for my family, or I could pay a lot of my bills, $1,000 worth of my utility bills like water and power for a month, or two or three, depending upon your usage, or 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe even 10 months if you're able to keep your bills, utility bills that low. So it's like there's this opportunity cost for going into technology now. There's a little bit of a switching cost, but is it painful enough for me to be willing to go down with the ship if I'm overloaded with debt? Probably not. So the sales of Apple iPhones are not that high. And the interest in Apple iPhones, the new Apple iPhone that came out, has kind of lagged. So they had to stop talking about it. And so that's been hurting tech shares dramatically. Now, cryptocurrencies, remember, have two components. They've got the technology component and they've got the monetary component. People consider them money and technology together. So I believe, given that we're going to have capitulation in all assets due to the contraction of credit as interest rates rise, you're going to see a lot of sell-off in everything. So initially, what you're going to see is a little bit of rebalancing in the monetary realm. Currently, the dollar has lost a lot of value because they've been using it to purchase things when the interest rates were low. So what do? You borrow a lot of dollars, and then you exchange those dollars. You sell those dollars to buy other things. And typically what they've done is they've gone to the emerging markets to do that, where they'll exchange the dollars for currency over there and buy things cheaper as a carry trade type thing, where they can get better interest rates in a more risky area than here in the US since interest rates are low. So yeah, the carry trade issue is unwinding as they raise interest rates in the US because now that money can come back here and make more interest. I actually was doing corporate bonds for a while, but now with all the debt, I pulled out of corporate bonds. I made a lot of good money in corporate bonds because of the yields. And now with the risks, I've pulled out about 6 months ago. I told you guys that. And I even said that seems kind of weird that I'm talking about all this debt, but then I go into corporate high yield bonds, which are high risk. But I did it for a yield, and I was able to make that money and put it into other investments. And so you're going to see that money come back from the carry trade. You're also going to see the money issue, the dollar issue rising because of, what's his name? I think it's Brent Johnson. He has this dollar, well, anyway, just look up the dollar milkshake theory. He has this great theory about the dollar rallying tremendously in the next couple of years that people are not expecting it. Most people are expecting the dollar to go in the toilet because of the petrodollar being dumped. And I was one of those in that camp originally that thought the dollar would go in the toilet due to the petrodollar being dumped and the petro yuan being formed. But I now, after listening to his theory and thinking about it, I subscribe mostly to his theory that the US dollar in a liquidity crisis where risk goes up and people want to get access to the dollar and they can't because interest rates are so high, normally priced, plus the risk factor, interest rates go higher due to risk. If you're a high risk borrower, a lender will not lend to you unless you're able and willing to pay higher interest rates in return for borrowing that money. But the lenders, who are the banks, are most likely going to lower their lending standards anyway. This is part of the problem. The banks get dangerous where they lend money to everybody, and including dangerous borrowers, and then when the borrowers don't pay, that danger is transferred to the banks. The banks become dangerous. Then the banks don't lend to each other because they're afraid of each other, and you get a liquidity crisis because there's no money coming out of the banking system. No one wants to lend, and even if they wanted to, there is no money in the banking system because interest rates have been so low that no one has been saving. They've been spending instead because it's been cheaper to borrow and spend. So without going further into the liquidity crisis thing, you can go back and watch the liquidity crisis videos. I did 3 or 4 videos on that. Here's my thinking on cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are not the place to be until that currency component starts to kick in, where you can't get dollars anymore, and the dollar has inflated so much. And I think at some point, you know, the rest of the world's going to be borrowing a lot, buying a lot of dollars. They'll be wanting it because their currencies will be collapsing as they borrowed debt in terms of dollars. So the dollar is going to rally tremendously, and then at some point, when everyone has dollars, they will get nervous because they'll think about their own country's governments and how those country governments have failed them. Right now, Mexico is failing the Mexican people by allowing the Honduran caravan, whose government failed them, to come into their country and totally rip apart their economy. So all these countries have failure governments, and people go for dollars in those situations. They dump their own currencies because they're not stable, because the governments are managing them, and they go to the dollar. When everyone's in the dollar, they'll think about their old countries, and they'll go, you know what, those people didn't take care of us. So what makes the U.S. any different? And that at that point, they'll want to diversify, even if the U.S. is currently the strong one with Donald Trump, because I think Donald Trump is an excellent president. He's doing everything we elected him to do. And if you're the one, you were a Trump supporter, and then you decided to go long the stock market, you were totally stupid, because what Trump was doing is he's going to correct things around the world. And in order to do so, there has to be pain. There will be blood. In other words, there will be blood. You have to kill people. You have to hurt people in order to make change sometimes. Change comes with a funeral, as they say. Now, is Donald Trump physically going out and killing people? No. What I'm saying is he's going to be cutting the bad guys out of the swamp. And by doing so, there's going to be a lot of pain. You're seeing it with China. China is one of the main bad guys because they're communist, and they control things everywhere around the world, and they get favorable. We've had communist interests in the United States who were in power at one time. The Clintons, the Obamas, and in some ways the Bushes were communist in many ways. Well, they were all socialists, because Nazis are socialists, and the Bush family is related to the Nazi party, as Prescott Bush was a Nazi. So you're going to see those socialist policies where they allowed the communist countries to come in and screw us are now being changed. Donald Trump is clipping that. Because guess what? We're not the only ones that are overloaded with debt. China is overloaded with debt, and the rest of the world is overloaded with debt. So the best thing that Trump did was come in and do these trade tariffs, because we were getting butt screwed, if you know what I mean, by the Chinese. They had absolute ability to manipulate their currency. They had absolute ability to manipulate our trade agreements so that they benefited. And he's cut all that now with the tariffs. And China has also manipulated their currency by pegging their currency, their yuan, their RMB, to our dollar. So no matter what the dollar did, China's currency did too. So if this is the dollar and this is China's currency, if the dollar dropped in value, China's could drop in value too. So that China always maintained the cheaper currency factor and was able to do things in a lot cheaper way so that dollars would flow to China at that time. But now with what Trump has done, Trump is shaking China. They're holding on to us. He's trying to shake them off by these tariffs, because what's happening is by doing the tariffs, they've scared the rest of the world. And by interest rates rising, the dollar rises in value, and therefore the pegged currency rises in value too. And when pegged yuan rises in value, if someone in Brazil wants to buy yuan, and Brazil is all the way down here, it is way more expensive now to buy yuan to do business in China than it is than it was before, and than it is if China was separate from the dollar. So by pegging to the dollar, they are damaging their own economy. So Trump putting Powell in the Federal Reserve, which none of us love the Federal Reserve. We all hate it because central banks are basically communist entities controlling markets. By putting Powell and the Fed, Powell has been there raising interest rates, raising interest rates, raising interest rates, as the old central bank moniker or motive and mantra has been to till things break. Now they're actually trying to break it because they want to break the economy. They want to break this communist globalism that has been screwing everybody. And the rest of the world is starting to see it everywhere. The communist media that has been feeding us that humanitarianism is actually good, they've changed the meaning of the word humanitarianism to mean socialism. And by accepting socialism, you're good. Well, not when you give away your farm, not when you give away all your benefits. And it's not good when you give it to people who don't respect it. And the Mexican people are starting to see that through the Hondurans. You give them beans and rice, and they say that's food for pigs. The Europeans are seeing it through the migration of the Syrians, who the Syrian refugees were actually created by the communist Obama administration, who went in and went to attack Assad. Syria was a wealthy country until that happened, and now it's been devastated, and so all the people had to flee. So the Syrian refugee was created by the Obama administration. If you don't believe me, go back into old internet footage, which is the beauty of internet. Everything is there until they take control of it and scrub it. So now that it's there, go do your research and find out that President Bashar al-Assad invited President Obama to Syria at one time before there was any aggression. And you can see how beautiful and wealthy Syria was at that time. And you can see that things were stable. Then Obama started to call for his time to go. Assad must go. That was the term. Assad must go. Hillary Clinton, Assad must go. John Kerry, Assad must go. They are the parents, the creators of the Syrian refugee crisis, because they started the bombings, started the attack on Syria through financing ISIS. They are the parents of ISIS too. If you notice, ISIS formed at that time to fight the Syrian army. And they were terrorists against our country, and our government was using them to fight the Syrian government and overthrow them, to try to overthrow them. Didn't happen. But the Syrian refugees went all to Europe, and they disrespected Europe. They wanted the best hotels. That's not humanitarianism. They wanted the best food. That's not humanitarianism. You know what humanitarianism is? It's when you're hungry and I give you something to eat. That something is anything good, nourishing for you. Beans and rice is nourishing for you. So what the Mexican people did for the Hondurans was charity. It was humanitarianism. And what the socialist communist media and the socialist communist invaders have done is they're saying, you are not humanitarian. You're treating us like dogs by giving us rice and beans. Well, guess what poor Mexican people eat? Rice and beans. It's a staple in their country. It's like going to Asia, where rice is a staple in that country. Beans and rice are a staple in Mexico. So by saying that's food for pigs, you just said every person who eats beans and rice in Mexico is a pig. And I love it. I love this. I love that the world is starting to see that the rhetoric of communism is being turned against them. Because in the past, this is how things have been run. The banking system runs things on perspectives and perception. The way you perceive things is the way they are. You can hear it in the media. Perception is reality. They tried to pull this recently. Kamala Harris tried to say that there's a perception that the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency, or ICE, is perceived to be Nazis. And because they're perceived to be Nazis, that's the reality. Horrible. I got news for you. Democrats wear blue. The Nazis wore blue. So I perceive Democrats as Nazis. But the funny thing is, the Democrats actually are Nazis. They are the historic party who formed the KKK. So, going back to reality here. Perception is not reality. You may smell fire, but that doesn't mean your building is burning. You may perceive there to be a fire just because you smell something burning in your house, but it may be someone overcooked something in the oven and the oven was shut off. But just because you perceive there to be fire, does that mean there's fire? No. You need to be on point with reality. You need to be linked into reality, and perception is not reality. So they've been doing this for a long time. The Fed has been managing your perceptions into believing that the economy is good. And Donald Trump is now using that against everybody has who does not deal in reality, who deals in falsehoods. So, like I said, we're seeing capitulation. Do I believe it's the end time now? I have no idea. But the way I see it is the long term is this cannot go on forever. You cannot just borrow, 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 borrow. So I am long term negative on everything. Long term. This has always been my view since I discovered the economy was going downhill. Does that include cryptocurrencies? You bet it does. Does that include gold and silver? You bet it does. Does that include oil? You bet it does. Am I long oil right now? I am long oil because there may be short-term things. But again, I did a video about how satanic people run the world and what is the best time to hurt everybody? Now, because it's the holidays. Starting with Halloween, Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is actually a holy time. Halloween was actually a holy time at one time. They turned it into a pagan time. All Hallows Eve was celebrating the saints and the death of all those Christians who served God, and they turned it into dress up like demonic spirits and stuff. And I take part in that too because I think it's fun to dress up like something you're not, but I don't take it as a disrespect to my Christianity. I just use Halloween as a time to play a little escape fun party thing with my kids, and my kids enjoy it too. But keep it in perspective what Halloween is. It's a holy holiday. So it's a good time to create havoc, right? Thanksgiving is a time to be thankful for what you've been given by God and whatever anybody else has contributed to your life, and be thankful for life and health and whatever you have. That's holy. Hurt people then, right? They have Black Friday sales. Oh, we're going to make everything cheap. But if you're broke, it's going to hurt more because now you can't afford to buy even the cheap things. So that hurts people more. That's more satanic. Christmas is coming. Time of giving. We celebrate the birth of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, who cast out the devil. What's the best thing to do there? Hurt people, make them feel lonely, make them feel like they can't afford gifts for their loved ones, make them feel angry and despondent so their loved ones leave them. Now is the time to position yourself negatively so that you can benefit from what the evil ones are going to do. Let them transfer that wealth from the greedy and evil people to you so that you can use that for the glory of God. And in the short term, this is where I talked about the differences in terms of my investment. My short-term outlook is that there's going to be volatility. So take advantage of the upswings too. And if you don't want to play futures and options, if you're just going to take the viewpoint, now I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just letting you think about what I'm doing here. When I say you, I'm talking to myself, okay? So don't take that as financial advice. I'm not qualified to be a financial advisor. If you want to follow my stuff, and like I always say, if you want to follow my stuff and you make money, you want to take me out to lunch, or you want to give me some of that money as commission, I'm all for it. I'll take it. I'm not one to turn down a gift. But if you lose money, that's on you. You decided to do what you want to do. You need to educate yourself on how to invest, like I did. I educate myself. I watch all kinds of things. I read. I went to school to learn business and economics. I also go and I watch leftist stuff. I watch right stuff. I watch economic stuff in general. And then I make my own educated decision on what to invest in and how to speculate and do things like that. So when I make money, I don't look at that person like, hey, you did it. Although I give credit, like Brent Johnson, who did or whatever his name is for the dollar shake theory, milkshake theory. That really changed a lot of my investment paradigm. But overall, I make my own decisions, right? And it's through the years I've had lots of mentors like Jim Sinclair of JS Mindset, Bill Holter, Bob Prechter, Harry Dent, Jim Rogers, I mean, countless, countless, countless mentors who have taught me things. One of my personal best friends who passed away years ago taught me real estate, Sam Stanson. He taught me how vile government can be because he went, he had a Supreme Court case against Humboldt County where they tried to steal a hotel from him, and he won. And I met the attorney for Death Row Records at the time of Suge Knight and like the heyday. He was also, he said he studied that case in his law school. My friend basically won in the Supreme Court against Humboldt County, which was a corrupt government using eminent domain as a means of stealing people's personal property. I learned a lot from him. So learn from people, make them your mentors, but make your own educated decisions. All right? I'll leave it at that. If you like this, smash that like button, hit subscribe, hit the little gray bell notification button. Make sure it has the little symbols around it so that it notifies you when I put up a new video. And most importantly, share this information with everybody you know so that you can help them in what's to come. And I'll do a quick disclosure of what I am long in right now. I just went long agricultural futures. Why? Because the weather is not good, and I believe that eventually agriculture is going to be very strong. It's going to be very expensive, and it's going to be hard to get. I'm going long the dollar. I am shorting the stock markets, technology in particular, like NASDAQ. I am shorting financials, and I'm looking at shorting regionals now too, because I think it's going to be up to the region. The regionals will really tell me when the financial market has flip-flopped and it's time to die, in other words. So those are my positions, and I'm long oil a little bit. I got long last month, and oil has dropped. It's hurting me a little bit, but I don't care. I'm gonna keep riding that cycle, because what's the best way to put the nail in the coffin during a satanic period of time? Is make oil skyrocket so people cannot leave their own homes. Right now, with the economy getting bad, people were gonna stay home. They're not gonna go eat out. They're not gonna go see movies. They're not gonna do things because it's too expensive, and the only thing they can do is drive to and from work. What's the most painful thing you can do in all of this? Make oil skyrocket for some reason so that gasoline skyrockets. Start a few fires at refineries. Blow up some oil wells. Get a war going off in oil producing country. Something like that could happen. So anyway, share. I'll cut it at that. Take care, y'all. Love ya. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for all of you guys. Think about all your blessings and what you're thankful for. Take care.